Hey everybody, and welcome to the Artisan Author, the low-stress, high-quality, fan-focused approach to escaping the publishing rat race. My name is Johnny B. Truant. I'll be your host for the evening. And just a little bit about me, I was one of the hosts of the original self-publishing podcast back in the day. We were one of the first indie publishing podcasts. And then we wrote a book called Write, Publish, Repeat to kind of take the knowledge of the podcast and put it in a sensible form. Then we created the Smarter Artist Summit, which was held for 4 years in Austin, Texas. And on the fiction side, I'm the author of Fat Vampire, which was adapted by NBC Universal and made into a show called Reginald the Vampire, which was Sci-Fi and then Hulu. And then beyond that, I write pretty much everything from murder mystery like Pretty Killer to whatever the hell unicorn western is. I came into this as somebody who just wanted to write. It was just a passion thing. I remember being on my grandmother's lanai in Florida working on an actual typewriter. And that was way before this was something that I could do as a business. Originally, it wasn't something you could easily do as a business without going through the traditional publishing machine. So it was always for the love of it. And I didn't really think that I could do anything with it professionally until the time came. So that's me. But a conference like this, there's a bunch of different people, a bunch of different levels. It's big, it's overwhelming, so I want to get a feel for what all of you are, who you are, basically. So just by a show of hands, who started writing mostly or entirely out of the love of writing? Is that something that you wanted to do? Okay, so if you absolutely had to, and you couldn't make money and write something that you really enjoyed, who out there would pick that they just wanted to write for the love of it? Even if you couldn't make money? Anybody? Okay, awesome. Now, anybody just starting out? People with like 1 or 0 books? Anybody with more? Like 5, 10? Okay, good. So we have a good mix of people. It's about what I expected. So especially for the people who are new, but really for anybody, you come to this, there's a lot of sessions, there's a lot of things to learn. Is anybody finding it just a little bit overwhelming? Just a little bit, just a little too much? Anybody starting to see that this is maybe more complicated and nuanced in ways that maybe aren't that satisfying? You're kind of like, boy, there's just a lot here. And maybe just a little bit discouraging. You go up to your room and you're just a little overwhelmed and it feels like, well, this isn't really what I signed up for. I wanted to write books and now I need to learn how to do ads and I need to learn all these different nuances. And oh, by the way, you can't just write whatever you want. You need to write within a genre. You need to write in a series. You need to do CTAs. Anybody just a little discouraged, a little less than what you wanted? So that's kind of how I felt coming back. I was gone. I was out of the industry for a few years. I did a lot of this sort of thing. And then I went into my writer's cave for about 5 years and I just wrote and I didn't come to conferences or anything. So when I came back, it was just a couple of years ago, it was very overwhelming to me too. And it was discouraging to me too. And I came into this with love and I came into this knowing it. And suddenly we're in an atmosphere where I don't know where all the buttons are. And it's so much. And I remember thinking at the pace that everybody was going, did I really still want to do this? Was it really something that was like that passion that I had started with? And it started to feel, for people like me and maybe for some of you, a little bit less like a passion project and a little bit more like your usual job, right? So you remember the last slide, right? Like this is what I used to think writing was. It was rainbows and unicorns. But when I came back, it was a little more like this. So let's just compare them, modern authorship versus working in Bill Lumberg's office. So if you're doing the dominant paradigm right now, the rapid release, push into Kindle Unlimited, whatever it is that is being taught dominantly right now, you have a boss. Somebody is telling you what to do. It's either a literal boss in an office, or if you're a writer, you think that you have all the freedom in the world, but you don't. If you don't write the same book in the same genre that you just wrote to keep those algorithms happy, if you do something that Amazon doesn't like or whoever else, you're going to get fired. You could be fired at any time. And if you don't believe me, then just try stopping that genre that you've been writing. Write something different. Take 2 months between releases and you will be fired by your audience because they will stop buying or the algorithms will stop serving. In both environments, nobody really cares about you. You are one of many people who are pumping out what is essentially a commodity to the readers who read that fast, read that much. And they will find somebody else if you aren't available. And it's not going to get any easier That's the other thing. If things are selling inexpensively now, they're going to sell less expensively. If books are being required quickly now, they're going to be required more quickly. It's not going to slow down because somebody is always willing to do it better and faster. And speaking of that, you're entirely replaceable. If anybody's worried about AI taking your lunch money, this is where it comes from. You could be fired from that job, or AI can come in and do your writing work better than you. So you're basically faced with this dilemma. You can either have the pure unbridled creativity that all of us want, where you can do whatever you want, you can say whatever you want, you can work at whatever pace that you want, or you can have success. But it doesn't feel like you can have both. If you try to have both, you can have neither. And that's the dilemma that I was facing coming back. When I came back to this, I thought, geez, do I still really want to be in this? Because by the way, even the successful people, it's a case of what you wish for, because a lot of people end up with a really successful series that they then can't quit. We call that golden handcuffs. The minute you stop, then suddenly you're out. But for now, you're doing great. And I just didn't want to play that game. And it reminded me of this quote by a great sage, "A strange game. The only winning move is not to play." Now, the Whopper from War Games was talking about global thermonuclear war, but it applies to writing in this modern environment just as well. And it certainly felt that way to me. But what I started to realize as I walked around the conference that year was I started talking to other authors who were just as frustrated. And we were sharing stories about readers who had come to us, and they are just as frustrated too. And whereas there's this schism between the readers who want to read what is the rapid release crowd is creating and what I would call artisan readers want to read, there is also the division between the authors. And so started to realize that there is an alternative, which I call the way of the artisan author, where instead of playing the game where you're trying to beat the algorithms, you can be the artist that you came into this to be. Instead of feeding the machine, we cultivate fans who will stick with us forever. Instead of pricing your books lower and lower in a race to the bottom, artisan authors are able to sell higher quality books at higher prices. You take your time to make the rich and beautiful books that you always wanted to take. And honestly, I really appreciate that this has happened, that this division has happened, because it allows artisan authors, the people who want to go in the direction we're going to talk about today, to do more and more of that, because it's so polar, because the alternative has become such a churn. So in this talk, I'm going to show you a way to create, over time, a solid and sane way to run your author career that's immune to whims, platforms, and changing algorithms, a way that you can't be replaced no matter what happens, a way to get readers coming in looking for you, that you don't have to be discovered, a way to eliminate competition because they are directly coming in for you, immunity to AI because AI, again, can't do what you're doing as an artist and author. They're looking for that connection, and to give you permission to be as much of an artist and a creator as you want to be. Because the artisan readers love those books that you're going to create as much as, like, people who get vinyl prefer records over MP3s. And most importantly, a way to enjoy writing again instead of it feeling like such a hopeless uphill battle or a grind. So let's compare the two, rapid release and the artisan author. So there's no judgment here. That's not that one way is better or another way is worse. But just to know, side by side, there are pros and cons to both of these approaches. So on the rapid release side, it's quantity focused. Not to say that rapid release doesn't care about quality, but it does mean that quantity has to come first. It is book-centric, meaning that each reader is looking at an individual book to make a decision of whether they want to read it rather than looking to the overall body of work. You can have lots of readers, but they're more price sensitive. What that means is, yeah, you could also have no readers. By no means does this mean a rapid release is going to work for everybody. It doesn't. But it does mean that if you are successful, all other things being equal, you're going to have potential for more readers on the rapid release side, but they do tend to be more price sensitive. Discovery happens through algorithms, which is why we are pandering to the algorithms, why we're playing to them, is because those are how the books are put in front of the individual readers rather than other ways. Commonly Kindle Unlimited and exclusive. Now, it would be pretty hard to be a rapid release author without being in Kindle Unlimited, but the reverse doesn't necessarily hold true. If you're in Kindle Unlimited, that doesn't mean that you're not an artisan author, but that is those do typically go together more often than not. Mostly ebooks. There are plenty of people who do a lot of ebooks and do paperbacks, again, even in Kindle Unlimited on this side of the coin, but it's much more common for rapid release to focus, let's say, very highly on ebooks. It's fast-paced and deadline-driven. Again, that is the rapid release. If you don't push out books quickly enough, the algorithms lose you and then everything collapses. And for that reason, taking time off will kill momentum. You go away too long, you come back and your empire has collapsed. Lots of restrictions in terms of genre and tropes. That's the whole you have a boss thing, because the algorithms are keying to particular things that are in your books in order to push them into the next readers. They tend to be very narrow. There are hot genres. There is consistency that needs to be between book to book or author to author. And genre mixing is not something that's typically tolerated by the algorithms because there just aren't enough people who follow those particular mixed genres. You have fans who are transactional, which means that they are going to get a book from you and that is the end of the transaction. It's ideal for detail-oriented problem-solving people. It's almost a different discipline than we would think of traditional writing because they're solving a logic puzzle here. And it is fast and leverageable if it works for you. Same as the lots of readers but more price sensitive. If it works, it does tend to be much more leverageable, much, than the artisan author approach. And finally, higher potential for breakout profits, again, if it works. Now, on the artisan side, the counter to this is that artisan authors are quality focused. Again, they can produce a lot of quantity, but quality has to come first, just like art has to come first. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. It's author-centric, meaning that there's a higher potential that these people are going to be following favorite authors, that they are going to read one author and then read more of their books, that they're going to form a bond with the author rather than just the individual book. Relatively speaking, fewer readers, but they're less price sensitive. This tends to be a one-to-one approach, meaning that you are not going to be able to leverage it very well, but those people will generally pay more because they're artisanal. Discovery happens through word of mouth, not algorithms. It's one of the reasons that we can have the freedom is because we don't have to play to the algorithms. We can have people talk to people. Wide, including direct sales and Kickstarter, you don't have to do that, but you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot as an artisan author if you're taking away the advantages of the exclusivity without actually being non-exclusive. And you can do stuff like direct sales and stuff, not necessary, but you can do it. Ebooks, physical books, special editions, and more. This is the fun part. I actually make way more money from paperbacks than I do from ebooks as an artisan author. It's low stress and passion driven means that you can kind of work at your own pace, and for that reason taking time off is not usually a problem. We're playing a different game here. It's genre agnostic with pure creative freedom. That's why I can get away with things like Unicorn Western or the other weird things that I've done, is because, again, they're bonding with you and it's not served by an algorithm. Super fans and evangelists instead of transactional fans. These are people who get the tattoo, ride or die. Those are your true fans who we're going to talk about in just a second. It's ideal for highly artistic and creative people as opposed to detail-oriented problem-solving people. It is slow. You build one person at a time. I think that's one of the strengths. It feels more logical to me, but I'm firmly in camp artisan author. And lastly, instead of a higher potential for breakout profits, you have a higher potential for a passionate cult following. And I like to think of this as the Avengers versus Donnie Darko. You can have that passionate cult audience on this side, but you're going to have more acclaim on this side, again, if you're equally successful in both. Now, before we really delve in and to make sense of all of this, there's one thing that I haven't mentioned, one principle that you need to understand from artisan authoring that kind of forms the core of it, and it's this. To be successful, you only need 1,000 true fans. And this is from Kevin Kelly. And I would actually debate a little bit the idea of successful, because we're going to talk about that. It doesn't necessarily mean money, but by this definition, the easiest way to understand it is in money. So a true fan, like I said, they're the core, they're the center of the bullseye, and they are the truest of the true. You will have regular fans outside of it, you will have regular readers, but the true fans are the people who will consume everything that you have. Anything that you sell within reason, they will want to buy it. And if you have 1,000 true fans, and you produce $100 worth of content each year, that's $100,000. That's a six-figure gross salary right there. But what's cool about this is that you can scale it down. You can have 100 true fans. You can have 500 true fans. And this concept, I think, makes much more sense. It's easier to wrap your head around than the idea of how many books do you need to sell, how many readers do you need as a rapid release author? And the answer is a lot. But as an artisan author, we can imagine what 1,000 people look like in a room. And you just play to these people, and this is the goal here. You don't need popular acclaim. You need 1,000 people who really, really, truly love you. Or if you want to scale down and have part-time income, it's a smaller subset of that. Very simple. But this is conceptual. And I wanted to give you a specific example of somebody who uses this and how they might use it. And so I thought, well, who am I a true fan of? And I'm a true fan of exactly one person. And it's Austin-based singer-songwriter Bob Schneider. And Bob is a true artisan creator. My wife and I see him in this little pub about once a month. And Bob could be big. And he has had some sort of earmarks of popular success. He's had some big radio play, particularly the song 40 Dogs. He's had songs in a few movies. Back in the day, he even dated Sandra Bullock. He can sell out a stadium. But he could be a lot bigger than he is. And because I'm a true fan, I've listened to Bob on his podcast or wherever, and he'll talk about, boy, I wish I was bigger, man, Taylor Swift I'm so jealous of her, I can't stand it, and why am I not bigger? But then he'll go back and say, well, yeah, but I actually know how to be bigger. I know how to be bigger. I would just need to write the songs that Spotify likes to promote. I would need to listen to my manager and to my agent. I would need to stick to one genre rather than being all over the place. And if I were to do that, and if I were to follow all the instructions, he's got enough of a grounding. He's been around for a long time. He definitely could do that. The problem is he doesn't want to. He's making a decision to stay intentionally small because he likes the intimacy. He likes that he's not going to be called out or canceled for something that he says. And Bob says a lot of cancelable stuff. I've seen him dig himself into holes when he's at the front of the stage, and then he just kind of keeps going, and the band will be face palming around him and kind of like, Bob, just stop talking. But that's what he wants to do. But despite this, he's super well known in Austin. So if I were in Austin and I were to ask 10 adults aged, say 35 or older, probably 8 of those people are going to know who Bob Schneider is. But you go a little bit north, you go a little bit south, not too far south, San Antonio, it's going to drop to 5 or 6, maybe less. You move out of state, you come here, who in this room knows who Bob is? Okay, we got one person, right? So that's what happens, but he's super famous in his own town, and he's doing quite well. Bob definitely has his 1,000 true fans. He has his ride or die people. And this, for me, is the model of somebody who gets to make his own rules. He will say on stage, I'm an artist and I do what I want. And it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's totally tongue-in-cheek, or it's totally serious. And art is first and profit is second. And he will do kind of a really cool, hip, upbeat song, and then he'll do a disco song, and then he'll do a country song, just back to back to back, because he wants that freedom and he values that more than he values the money ultimately. And that's kind of the decision that we're making. Do we want superstardom, or do we want the freedom to create how we want? Well, by the way, making a really good living. I won't tell you what I heard that he makes for private appearances, but it's pretty good. So the thing is, in many ways, the artisan author is not just different from rapid release, it's the opposite. We're used to thinking in terms of sales, but don't think sales. Instead, think fans. You think fans and the sales will come. Don't think maximize profit. Instead, think maximize wonder. And similarly, don't think about gaining readers. Think delight them. Your number one job as an artisan author is to please the true fans that you already have. Again, you will have a halo of people who aren't true fans, but by working specifically for those true fans, you are speaking to what Stephen King would have called your ideal reader. And that is authentically and mostly you. And because they're forming the bond with you, this is how you do it. You don't worry about getting more readers. You worry about pleasing the ones that you already have. That's how you attract new readers. So this is all pretty conceptual. Well, it's not conceptual because I gave you some specifics, but I wanted to give you some kind of foundations as to what artisan authordom is all about, some rules, and I just call them pillars. So we'll just begin with pillar number 1. Art first, profit second. What that means, notice I didn't say profit never, it just has to come second. You have to put the artistic priorities first. You create something and then you decide how to sell it. And this means the difference between listening to the muse versus thinking of keywords and hot genres from the beginning. Now, there are limits, because if you do pure creative art and you don't have any consideration for what people might want to buy, well, okay, that's great and that's your decision, but it means you might not sell anything. If you want to actually make a living, actually make some sales, you kind of need to meet in the middle. But the rapid release authors don't necessarily have to think profit first, but they do have to think speed first. They do have to think velocity, whereas the whole point of what we're doing is to think art first. Pillar number 2, be human. No, I do not own that hat. Yes, I did wear it for an entire volleyball game. Sent it to my daughter twice without realizing, at which point she said, "Is this important? Why are you sending me this twice?" Being human means exactly what it sounds like. It means not thinking in terms of algorithms. It means thinking in terms of just being yourself, which is actually an unlearning, because it should be pretty easy for all of us to be human. It means dissecting artifice, not trying to appear as bigger or more impressive than you are, and also just doing the things that appeal to you. My books are full of Easter eggs. I can't tell you how many times Escape from New York or RoboCop have been mentioned in my books, because that's kind of something that I do. Easter eggs for other properties that I've done, other books. I always share commentary and talk with my people about how I wrote a certain book or the particular challenges of it. If you fail, tell them you failed. If you do great and you're excited, tell them you're excited. And just try to dispel this idea that you're somehow different from them. I like to think of my relationship with my readers much more like a friendship. And that's, once I made that mental click, it's like, oh, what's more human than just trying to make friends? Pillar number 3, treat readers like gold. We already talked about the 1,000 true fans thing. Again, that is the center of the bullseye. That is the goal. That is something that we are shooting for more than anything. Because these people are the folks who are making your life possible if they're true fans. And these are 3 of mine. So meet Blake. I met Blake in person, and he just burned through a whole bunch of paperbacks, bought them all direct from my store. And I enjoy hanging out with Blake. I actually went kayaking with him once. But again, I met him first. That's not with most readers. This is Ryan. Ryan's a scientist, and this is my book, Gore Point here. Ryan did promise not to open any portals to hell from his lab. And he said it was okay to share that photo, and just because here he is in the lab. Now, this one's really interesting. So this is Deborah, and these are like garden pavers. They're these white bricks that you can get. And she wraps her bricks in the covers of her favorite books so that she can have her books around her when she's in her garden. And my book, Gore Point here, is in some kind of illustrious company. And what was cool about this was that Gore Point has a sequel. And when it came out, Deborah got in touch and she said, "Can you send me a high-res version of the cover, because I want to add another brick to my garden?" What this means is thinking the opposite of scale. These are people. They are not numbers. And since your goal is to maximally delight the people that are your true fans, it means just being super cool and not cutting corners and always answering their emails and always being friendly. That is pillar number 2. Pillar number 4, or that is pillar number 3. Pillar number 4, take your time. This is implied by the whole artisan author approach. But here's an example. So this is my book, Pretty Killer. Pretty Killer is a neo-noir murder mystery where a mysterious host has invited a bunch of people to a dinner party with revenge on her mind. And because it has this Agatha Christie feel, but it's also elegant, we set it in an expensive restaurant, and the book is in courses rather than in acts. So there's an appetizer, there's a first course, a second course, there's dessert and digestif, and we actually had a chef create a menu to go with this. And the other cards in this book actually detail like a menu that he wrote for these diners at this restaurant. But we originally had these as just text. And I said, if I'm doing the print version, I want to make an elegant invitation to make it look kind of cool. There's some found documents at the end that have very important clues in them. There's a cutout, like something you ripped out from the physician's desk reference about a drug that's very important. There's a coroner's report that I actually made it looks like on a clipboard. And it was a huge waste of time by normal standards because it took forever, but I did it because it was cool. And I wanted to take my time and I wanted to do it right. Pillar number 5, think outside the box. I didn't have a picture for this one, so this is me with a box. And this is actually Christmas, and my mom didn't have enough wrapping paper, so she just put this square of wrapping paper on it. This is me delighting in it. Think outside the box means you don't do what other authors do simply for the reason that other authors are doing it. It also doesn't mean you reject it just because they're doing it. It means using critical thinking and saying, well, okay, so should I do things the way other people are doing it, or do I want to step outside? So I like to be flexible. I like to make exceptions within reason. I like to do kind of weird stuff, while also just not neglecting the sensible stuff simply because it's popular. So some examples, I did a vote as you go story where I wrote part of a story, sent it to my list and said, okay, what should people do next? And then they would vote, and then I would write the next part of the story, get to a decision point, and just repeat the process. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book where there's only one path, essentially, but they got to vote along the way. I've done surveys. I've told people about my writing philosophy. But the thing about thinking outside the box means, everybody wants a map, and there is no map. The better metaphor is a compass, where you have to kind of learn the tools and find your own way based on the information that's available. And so that's what that means. The map is a box, whereas thinking outside the box is actually orienteering according to your own senses and knowledge and acuity. And finally, pillar number 6, to thine own self be true. It's trite, but be you, everyone else is taken. Let your freak flag fly. You need to be fully and completely yourself. And I have this idea that if you think about what's normal in our world, what's the mainstream, that's actually a very small minority, because there are certain people who have always controlled media. This isn't like a conspiracy theory thing, but it's always been a small group, and they have shared their vision of what the world is just because they see it around them. That's why so many movies are set in California, because the writers are in California. But what that means is that we've gotten this fairly homogenous media that we call normal, and most people are outside of it. The most normal thing you can be, in truth, is abnormal. The most typical thing you can be is completely outside of what is generally considered to be normal and popularized in the world. What this means for you as an author, especially as an artisan author, is that there is a huge underserved population out there who are like, why isn't there media made for me? Well, if you have a freak flag to fly and you aren't afraid to fly it, there are people out there who are going to be clamoring for exactly the thing that you make, but only if you're bold enough to do it. So these are the pillars. I wanted to give you some examples of things that you could actually do today or very soon as an artisan author. So I'm going to give you some examples of high impact, low effort artisanship. So the first is indulge your other creative interests, even if it seems to take up time you should be working. Now, this is a strange one to start with, but it's the reason that I chose this picture taken by my good friend Mike of me playing a guitar, is because I love playing the guitar. And it isn't something that has anything to do with my work. I am not a performing musician yet, but I love it, and it feeds me creatively. And creative types need to have their creativity well refilled. And this is something that I feel like is a little short-sighted on the Faster community, because when are you pausing to refresh and refill your well? So if you have something else that you do, if you paint, if you garden, if you just like to take long walks, definitely do it, because that is something that makes you an artisan. Answer your email. Now, this may seem like the most obvious thing in the world, and nobody's going to write this down, and everybody's going to pay it. They're just going to ignore it because everybody thinks, well, I know to answer my email. But do you? Because I can't tell you how many times I have gotten an email from a reader, and the reader, I've replied, and then the reader says, oh my God, I can't believe that you replied to me. And I'm like, well, of course I replied to you. You sent me an email. But the only thing I can think is most authors are not answering their email. I just don't understand it. If these are the people who are making your career possible, and they are interested enough in you to go out beyond just reading your book, but to contact you, why would you not embrace that? It's the easiest thing you can do in terms of high leverage. Well, it's not high leverage because it's one-to-one, but in terms of moving people toward true fandom, that's already a warm lead. Why would you not seize on that? If you don't do anything else, do that. Cast a wide net, but narrow down with extreme prejudice. Okay, so to explain this one, you need raw material for creating true fans. You're going to have to sift a lot of silt off of a river bottom to find a few flakes of gold. But what do you need to do that? You need a lot of silt. So this is about, go ahead and do the big list promotions or the BookBub featured deal or the ads or the bundle promotions, whatever you would normally do to attract a lot of fans, to get a lot of people, a lot of readers, a lot of potential readers into your funnel. But then you need to narrow them down. And what I mean by this is there's a principle that you should understand. And this quote right here, pull in those people who love what you do, proudly alienate those who don't. This is from Derek Sivers. Now, what it means is that you need to not just be okay with being who you are and doing what you do, and then people will leave. That's step one, though. Be yourself, do what you do. Don't try to, make everybody happy. But it doesn't just mean you're okay if they leave. It means that you're kind of making a point of it. You're kind of trying to alienate. Don't be a jerk, but to proudly do it. Just stand up tall. This is who we are here in this place. And this has a really cool side effect, and it's that the people who are perfect for you will see you standing up and doing this, see you proudly alienating the people who aren't right for you. And those people who are ideal for you see that you're like guarding the gates of the kingdom. This is a safe place for all of us who are like this, because the leader of it is sending people away at the gate. So be who you are and be proud about it. So getting back to our list here, slow down and take your time. We've already covered that. That's kind of core to the whole thing. Make reasonable exceptions. And this goes right along with the next one, which is learn to take fan requests as opportunities. And I have 3 case studies in just a second that I'll explain what that means. And lastly, make your own damn rules. This is a sport for renegades, folks. If you are a diehard follower, maybe this isn't for you. If you're okay with rustling some feathers, or like me, kind of actively into it, then it is definitely for you. So let's talk about this idea of reasonable exceptions and fan requests. So I'm going to give you 3 case studies from me, because I just really want to get specific with this. So this is my book, The Island. It is a weird book. It's super trippy, and I've written some weird books. This one's the weirdest of them. And I got an email one day from a reader. Well, she wasn't a reader yet. Her name was McKinney. And she said, I collect signed books called The Island. I've never heard of you, but I thought, well, that's an interesting hobby. How many books are there out there called The Island that she can get signed? But that was her thing. And so she said, can you send me a signed copy of your book, The Island? And I said, well, I'm sorry, I don't do that. Like, I'm not equipped. Today I would be equipped, but at the time I didn't have that set up. I didn't want to figure it out. So I politely told her no. And then she asked again, well, what if this? What if that? And after about 3 or 4 of those exchanges, I thought, why am I trying so hard not to let this woman like me? So I sent her back an email and I said, well, okay, can I charge you an extra $10 to cover postage and supplies and just my time and hassle? And she said, sure. So I sent it off to her, and I got an email not that long ago. She's like, hey, I started reading your book and I really like it, and now I'm checking out your other books. That was an opportunity for me to step outside of what I normally do. This one's really super cool. So this is me signing books for one of my Kickstarters. And what I did with this Kickstarter was I did signed and numbered books. So if you're not familiar with that concept, they do it a lot with art prints. And let's say you do a run of 100 or 250 of a print, or in my case, a book. They're limited run, so you number them, 1 through 100 or 1 through 250. And the lower numbers are more valuable. It means that theoretically they came off the press first, but really it just means the artist got to them first. So I had in this Kickstarter, I had a few pie-in-the-sky tiers that nobody took, just expensive tiers. The highest level that people did take was $250. I had 3 takers at that level. And because I had those higher tiers, I basically told people it's going to be too crazy to try and give everybody a number that they want, or to do them in order of who signed up when. That's just logistically too difficult. But for the high tiers, I'll give you a specifically low number. You get the lowest numbers. But I was still thinking I'd get those. So when I got down to 250, it didn't occur to me. That was my cutoff. So I had a reader who was late to respond to his survey. And by the time he got back to me, I had given out most of my numbered copies, and I had a few left, and I think the best I could do was like number 27 or something like that. And I let him know. And then he very kindly but firmly replied and said, well, okay, I'm not I'm not mad, I'm not upset, it's totally cool, but let me explain to you kind of how this looked. And I can quote you here. I see that you did not promise that you would give me a low number, but you only had 3 people, your highest supporters, kind of thought you'd do it anyway. But it's cool. It's cool. Just for next time, know that this is how it was seen. And he gave me an out. I could have walked away. And I sat back and I thought, shit, that's true. He's absolutely right. I absolutely should have done that. So for some reason, I had kept copy number 1 for myself. I don't know. Maybe I'm a collector of me. So I told him and I said, look, I have copy number 1. You're right. This is my bad. I'll send you my copy. And he was so bowled over that I had given him my copy and copy number 1 that he was first on the button for the 2 sequel campaigns for this, $250 each time, and now he has all 3 number 1s. And it was only because I did what I did. Final case study. So this is the whale table at Austin local bookstore Book People, and this is my book Unicorn Western here right up front. And so that was so cool for me to see my books in a bookstore that I emailed my list and I said, I don't normally do meetups with fans outside of some sort of scheduled thing, but if you just let me know, shoot me an email if you're coming to town, you want to come to Book People, I'll come down, I'll meet you, and I'll get you a cup of coffee or something. And I had 3 people actually take me up on this because one brought a friend and drove, I think those 2 people drove up from like San Antonio, so it was like an hour-and-a-half round trip just to come here, just to meet me. And between those 2 people, I think it was like $250 worth of books that they bought, because they bought more than was just at Book People. Again, an opportunity to create some true fans. If you remember nothing from this presentation, guys, I want you to remember this. Your ideal readers want a connection, not a book. Those true fans, they aren't looking for just the next book on their Kindle or wherever it is. They are looking for an implied connection or an emotional connection to the creator that made it. The thing is, the artisan author approach is not for everyone. It's not fast. It's not guaranteed. But for those of you who are sick of the soul-sucking, high-stress rat race that publishing has become, you can't possibly imagine the creative joy that you've been missing. The artisan author approach is a real-life example of the tortoise and the hare. If you take the time now to form lasting, time-tested bonds with real people and real fans, you will be around for long after the trend chasers who only care about money fail. Thank you.